Recently it was announced that Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life would be getting a remake, which definitely caught my interest. It's probably one of the best known classic Harvest Moon games, right next to the Mineral Town ones, so I guess it's not too surprising that Marvelous would choose to remake it under their Story of Seasons banner. But truthfully, I actually haven't played all that much of it, despite it being so well loved by the fanbase. So I would say there's no better time to try it again than right now. The game begins with your character arriving in Forget-Me-Not Valley, a quiet settlement where your father lived. Recently he passed away, so you decide to leave your big city life in order to take over the farm with the help of your dad's old friend Takakura, who lives on the property as well. You also get to choose what kind of dog you want this time, but it doesn't really do much. At least it's cute. And so your farming journey begins. The game has most of what you would expect from a Harvest Moon game. You raise crops and animals to earn money, interact with the people in town, and eventually get married and raise a family. However, the gameplay mechanics in this entry are probably some of the most complex in the series. Each season is only 10 days long, but the time goes by at a much slower pace. It'll take you about 20 real-world minutes in order to complete one in-game day. You also don't wake up at a set time. Instead, you wake up at around 7 hours after you go to sleep. Of course, depending on how tired you are when you went to bed, you might sleep for even longer. Crops need to be watered more than once per day, about 2 or 3 times I find is best. Most of the crops will only provide you a single harvest, while fruit-bearing trees will give you harvests throughout the year. Crop quality can be improved with fertilizer, but it can be rather expensive early on. You can also purchase a seed maker in order to generate seeds from your crops for next season. A Wonderful Life gives us something rare in the series: male livestock. Roosters are needed in order for hens to produce fertilized eggs, which will hatch into chicks. You should also only pick up your hens when they're sitting on an egg. Otherwise, being picked up too much stresses them out, which means no eggs. Cows eat twice per day, and also need to be milked twice per day. And as usual, happier cows give you better milk, and in higher quantity. However, much like in real life, cows need to have a calf in order to continue to produce milk. And that's where bulls and, miracle potion services come into play. If you have at least one bull and one cow on your farm, there's even a good chance you'll have a surprise pregnancy. When a cow is nearly ready to give birth, they'll need to be isolated in the barn. Once the calf is born, it'll go outside in the calf hutch. That's where the mother will provide mother's milk, which needs to be given to the calf. And after a few days, it'll begin drinking normal milk, before eventually being ready to join the rest of the herd. So your bovine livestock in particular are much more involved this time around. I wonder what happens if you try to milk a bull. Sheep are also here. It can be stored for wool once per season. However, all of them are male, so you can't raise your own lambs like in other entries. You'll receive a horse early on too, which makes traveling a lot faster. You can even give your animals a wash whenever they get dirty, which is a neat little detail. Making money in this game is a bit tougher than before. At around 6 in the morning, Takakura will make his way into the city to sell the eggs, milk, and crops you placed into the bins. At around noon, he'll return to the farm with the profits. While you can sell other items, such as things you'll find at the local dig site and fish you fish stop, you'll need to sell them in a more direct method. One of these ways is by setting up a shop in town, where you can sell your wares to the villagers that pass by. It's also a good way of getting an idea of what kind of things people like. However, you're probably better off waiting for Van to arrive on the 3rd and 8th days of each season, where you can sell as much as you want to him because he's got a bottomless wallet. You can also buy exclusive merchandise from him, including a goat. But the goat only gives you milk for a year, so I didn't bother. Something I think A Wonderful Life does well is the almost melancholy tone of the valley. There's not really much music whenever you're outside, except for on your farm. Much of what you'll hear outside of the farm is the ambient sounds of nature, if not outright silence. It really emphasizes just how far away you are from the hustle and bustle of the city, and just how tiny the valley is, even compared to a place like Mineral Town. I think one of the reasons why I didn't play too much of this game when I was younger was because of how slow the pacing was, even for a Harvest Moon game. Now, however, I appreciate a lot more with how it contributes to the quiet and lonely atmosphere. While Forget-Me-Not Valley might not be very big, it makes up for its small population with its downright weird cast of characters. There's a local doctor, Dr. Hardy, who looks like he's wearing a cyborg eye patch, and also doesn't wear pants. Which to me just seems a little inappropriate, but he's also the only doctor in town, so I guess I can't really say anything about it. There's a scientist named Daryl who comes to your farm uninvited to stare at your cows, and he even tries to steal one for his scientific purposes. At the aforementioned dig site, there's the archaeologist Carter, who prays the sun each morning by the waterfall. He also doesn't seem to be very good at his job. Did you just find an ancient artifact from an ancient civilization? Or a bone from a human skeleton? Well, that's of no interest to Carter, so you can just hold on to those potentially priceless artifacts and human remains. There's even an abominable snow monster that lives in the forest, who wanders around during winter. For some reason, no one seems to find his presence very notable. I guess even the townsfolk are aware of just how weird this place is. One character that's conspicuously absent, however, is the Harvest Goddess, something that even the local harvest sprites make note of. Apparently, they need to collect so-called nices in order for her to come to the spring, but besides 2 cutscenes, nothing else about it is mentioned. Maybe the goddess is hiding in this shed on our farm that we can't open up for some reason. Takakura, have you been keeping her from us? Marriage is in this game as usual, and it's a lot more important this time. So important that if you don't get married by the end of the first year, then the game ends. I guess you can't have a wonderful life without a spouse, at least according to this game. I've also mentioned before that I'm not really into the Forget-Me-Not Valley bachelors as much as the ones from other entries. But out of the 3, I do like Marlon the most. There are also rival events, but they won't ever get married, because they're not as cool as us, I guess, so they get to be forever alone. After you and your chosen spouse get married, the game will fast forward to 3 years later and into the second chapter, where you have a son that looks just like his daddy. Unlike in a lot of other entries, where your child doesn't really do all that much, there's a lot more emphasis placed on how your child will grow up. Depending on who you married and who you become friends with, among other factors, your son will develop interests in certain subjects as he grows older. He might express a desire to take over the family farm, or he might find an interest in archaeology. And in another rarity for the series, you actually get to see your child grow into adulthood. This is probably one of my favorite aspects of the game, and it's too bad that not too many other entries did something similar. As the game progresses, you'll meet a variety of new characters and new things to experience. One of these characters is Tartan, a 2-headed talking plant that Takakura brings to his home. Don't worry though, he doesn't eat people. Probably. But if you become friends with him, he'll be able to create hybrid crops for you. He can also upgrade seeds if you combine them with certain flowers you can find in the valley, no fertilizer needed. Another feature that I've come to really appreciate about this game is the emphasis on the passage of time. In most other entries, the town your player character lives in doesn't really change all that much, even as several years go by. In the Wonderful Life games, you actually get to see the valley grow around you. People move in, grow up, grow old, and even pass away, and I don't just mean your own character. The passage of time also contributes to the more somber tone of the game, as it's a bit sad seeing things change so much as the years go by, and knowing that there's not much you can do to slow things down. All you can do is try to appreciate every moment you have, and make the most of them. Yasuhiro Wada has said that A Wonderful Life is his favorite entry in the series, as it's the game that's come closest to his original visit for Harvest Moon, and is what he always intended it to be. And after playing it for myself, I can see why. Not only do you play as your character until their final day, this is the game that probably has the most emphasis on the life part of being a farm life simulator. Living in Forget-Me-Not Valley isn't the most exciting life, but that doesn't make it any less of a wonderful life. While being a farmer is a fair bit more challenging in this game, it makes eventually running a successful farm all the more rewarding and fulfilling. Raising a family is also just as important, and it's great that you get to see your child grow into their own person. To this day, there's no other Harvest Moon game quite like it, and even all of the new farming sims that have been released can't quite capture the same feeling that Wonderful Life brought to the table. I can confidently say that this is now one of my favorite entries in the series, and I think it might just become one of yours too. Thanks so much for watching! If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.